Hey everybody, this is JDGaming back with a brand new deck profile for you guys today. So, for those of you who've been following my channel for a while, you know that I have this huge passion for Psychics. I've been playing Teleport pretty much since it came out. It's actually one of the reasons why I started looking more into Yu-Gi-Oh! Heavily during the Synchro era, because pretty much I had stayed with a ton of E-Heroes and a bunch of old plays, and then all of a sudden when Synchros came out, Teleport was really what got me to basically update from the nostalgia pit that I was in. So I've been playing Psychics for quite a while, and of course, after Teleport was hit, and then it finally became semi-limited, back in 2012, Jeff Jones topped with his Grandsoil deck, and ever since then, I've looked at Grandsoil and thought, there's got to be some way to play this thing. But realistically, I thought Psychics are an okay place to play it, but without Redox, it's very difficult to do so. So I thought, is there a way to put together a deck that will let us focus on Grandsoil and actually get it to work a good percent of the time? So that's the idea I had. Here we have some new tech that has been created for rank 3s like the Phantom Knights of Breaksword and some new Card Trooper-esque cards like Raiden, so I thought, hey, why the heck not? Let's try it out, and so far I'm pleased with what's happening here. So if you'd like to see the construction process, stick around. Just like normal, I will do that type of a deck profile while I go through my card choices and explain why things are in there. And then if you don't want to see any of that, at the very end, I will be doing a dueling network style, everything alphabetical deck profile. So if you go and hit that Grandsoil, the Elemental Lord, you will be able to go directly to that profile, and then feel free to come back to the explanation portion if there's anything that you don't understand. Maybe it'll make more sense to you after that. Other than that, just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. So first off, we are of course going to establish the theme of the deck. As I explained in the preamble here, we are going to be playing Grandsoil, the Elemental Lord. For those of you unfamiliar with the Elemental Lords, they are all these different attributes that are not light and dark, because those are over-supported, and pretty much if you have 5 of an attribute in your grave, you can summon the corresponding Elemental Lord from your hand, but you can't summon it in any other ways, and you must have exactly 5. No more, no less. Each one has an ability that mimics a forbidden card once it hits the field. Grandsoil is Monster Reborn, so it's actually quite nice in that it gets to synergize with the Load the Grave type of effect, because now once you have 5 guys, you'll probably have something that is able to, kill your opponent in there, and along with a 28 body with Grandsoil you can drop for free. It's pretty darn sick. You're probably going to be able to win the turn you drop this card. Couple things with this. Unlike the other Elemental Lords, you are not limited to once per turn. So if you revive a monster either from your opponent's grave or one of your own that's not an Earth, or you can just remanipulate it back to 5, you're able to drop multiple Grandsoil in a turn and really push for game. Plus, I found in testing that you sometimes just don't draw the Elemental Lord. So that's why you can't summon this card. You set it up and then you're just like waiting for this thing. That's why we will maximize our chances of seeing it by playing 3. And then we'll play some other cards to modulate our odds as well. Of course, for starters, Card Trooper is the big granddaddy of any Earth or any milling deck. It is a level 3 that lets you call 1 through 3, mill that many cards, and you go up by 500 points for each one. A pseudo 19 beater that gets you 3 things in the grave, and is an Earth monster itself, is phenomenal. And speaking of that, sending itself to the grave, when it does die, when it's on your side of the board, you do get to draw a card off of it, which is pretty good, because now you've lost nothing besides some life points maybe in the setup towards your Grandsoil. But despite this, Card Trooper actually isn't the best card for milling in the game anymore. We actually have a few others that we're supplementing the engine with to make sure we see cards as soon as possible. We're starting off with 2 Charge of the Light Brigade. This is a favorite, of course, in the Mighty Lightsworn deck, but something that I've been testing out in the Chaos OTK build that I make. Basically, this thing lets you go and fetch a Lightsworn at the cost of milling 3 to the grave. So now you get to see 3 cards for free and fetch a Lightsworn that will go mill 3 or however many more cards that turn. Really powerful draw acceleration. Pretty much if you draw Charge of the Light Brigade, you can expect within turn 1 or 2 you will have the setup for Grandsoil. So that's how powerful this thing is. And with it, we're only playing 3 Raiden. I realize you could go and invest in a Lila. You could play a Lumina. There's so many different things you could do with this, but the way this deck worked, I pretty much just wanted to focus on summoning Grandsoil first, and then rely on tech later. I've been liking Raiden at 3. You can choose to add more Lightsworns if you want later in the tech section, but I just chose Raiden because it's a 17 beater, lets you mill 2 on summon, or 2 on ignition effect, and then in the end phase you mill 2 more if it stays on the board, so that's 4 cards as opposed to the 3 of Trooper, and then the fact that you charge into 3 more means you go 7 cards deep into your deck. So as long as you build your deck in the proper way, you won't mill, 7 Earth monsters. That's actually really good because you can expect about half of them to be Earths, and then all of a sudden, you're really well on your way to summoning that Grandsoil. And then, kind of along those lines, we're playing one Rhoda. Rhoda works because the Raiden is a warrior. You can play some other warriors as techs as well in this deck, which is pretty cool, but with Rhoda only at 1, I really thought, this is just something you really do want to see that Raiden. Rhoda is actually a pretty good candidate if you'd like to switch to some other Lightsworn for that charge of the Light Brigade. Feel free to do so. Lumina is a pretty good one because you can use Raiden for some crazy synchro plays with Ancient Sacred Wyvern and Michael the Arc Lightsworn. But in here, it's just in here for consistency because in the initial stages of this deck, I just had so many problems with consistency. I needed to see these cards as much as possible. And kind of going along in that, finally, we have 3 Curry Bandit. This thing lets you go, the turn it's normal summoned, you can tribute it to excavate the top 5 cards of your deck, choose a spell or trap, add it to your hand, and then send the rest of the cards to the grave. So you send 4 things at least to the grave, and if you happen to see one of these spells, you get to go and accelerate your following turn, because now you can charge Light Brigade after you just milled 4. So gives you really good shots at going for the grave loading and picking out key cards. So this, I feel, is out of those 3, it's tied with Card Trooper in the sense that Card Trooper has a lot more utility and synergy, as we'll see later on, but Curry Bandit's C5 cards is nothing to sneeze at either. With this, we have a total of 3, 6, 9, 12 cards that help you go dig deep into your deck, at least 3 cards, and then 3 Grandsoil as well. So this is our milling engine. Now for some actual plays. So in turn 1, we will ideally have one of these milling cards, and we'll have a bunch of things sent to the grave. So what do we do as a follow-up on turn 2? Well, if you do have Grandsoil and you have everything loaded, that's everything, that's dandy for you. You just go crazy, bring out your Grandsoil, do some things, right? But even then, you want to make the most out of that graveyard setup. So we're playing 3 copies of Crane Crane. Crane Crane is one of my absolute favorites. It is an all-star in Psychics. It's popular nowadays in like Burning Abyss, and I think it's popular in the Phantom Knights deck as well, or at least some variants of it. Basically, this thing lets you go and target any level 3 monster in your graveyard upon normal summon. Negate its effects, but costs can still be paid. That's key. And then you can only play 1 Crane Crane in effect per turn. Since you're not playing double summon in this deck, I don't think that's relevant. But what you do with Crane Crane is you use this as a follow-up play. If you have your Card Trooper, you go and revive Trooper, you mill 3 with the cost of Trooper. It won't gain any attack, but you still get to mill 3, and then you can go and overlay for a rank 3 Xyz monster. This is extremely powerful because if you got horrible mills earlier, you can actually just go Dante, I guess in attack position since this is not the first turn anymore, and then you could detach the Trooper and mill 3 more with Dante, or however many you'd like, because again, you can play with the numbers a bit and see what you might have the highest odds of hitting 5 Earths between these. But you have 6 additional mills just off of the Crane Crane if you've used Trooper as your turn 1 play, which is quite amazing indeed. Dante makes this deck so much more accessible to players now because it does give you that Card Trooper in the extra deck, turning all your Crane Cranes into power mills in addition to other, powerful attacking plays. So that's the reason that we have the Card Trooper in here as one of the cards. It's because you have synergy with Crane Crane. You could, of course, just use something like the Curry Bandit. It's not ideal, but again, when you use these 2, you still go Dante. So, milling 3 isn't a horrible play either. Conveniently, Crane Crane has very, very low attack, as do the 2 Troopers. So what we're actually able to do in this deck is tech 1 Debris Dragon. So Debris Dragon, of course, staple in Plant Synchro decks. This lets you go and revive a monster in your grave with 500 or less attack at attack position, negate its effects, and you can't use this guy with any other level 4 monsters for Synchro summons. Well, these are all 3s, so you can get free Black Rose plays and Clearwing Synchro Dragon plays, but also, just like Crane Crane, it lets you reuse your Card Trooper and mill 3 as a cost, and then go for your play, so very awesome. It's pretty much a 4th copy of Crane Crane with a little bit of Black Rose twist in there, so very powerful card in this strategy. Just ensures that you have powerful normal summons, because basically if you mill a bunch of cards successfully in turn 1, you're probably not going to be going Dante turn 2. That's just an alternative as kind of a support for your mills if you didn't get enough. The Cranes and the Debris Dragons, though, really do help in making sure that you get really powerful normal summons, so that when you special summon with Grandsoil, now you have 2 powerful monsters. Grandsoil brings out a 3rd. You could potentially win off of that. It creates the win scenarios with that Grandsoil. And going along with that, we're playing Mathematician. So this, at first, I was really against, because it's 1 copy. It just didn't seem like a consistent option, right? And none of these things are really things I would want to actively throw to the grave. But we've already seen how we can throw Card Trooper to the grave, and that's actually not a horrible play, because now we can go and revive it with all these other guys. Mathematician has a similar draw 1 card if I die effect like Trooper, which is not bad. It's a bit slow, but it's possible. But I needed some way to justify using the Mathematician in this strategy, and so I chose these 2 plants from the plant engine. Glow Up Bulb is amazing because it is an earth monster that can come out of the grave on its own, which helps you get the Grandsoil. It is a level 1 tuner, which means you can use it with Mathematician for a free level 4 Synchro monster, which we'll get to in just a bit. And it also lets you go and unlock bigger plays. It gives you a huge access to Synchro pool that we'll get to, especially when combined with a Dandelion. So Dandelion, of course, every time it hits the grave, summons out 2 fluff tokens. So you can go and use those for synchroing, like Formula Synchron, and then you can go and summon out Tatsunoko with the Glow Up Bulb coming back. There are just some fun plays I'll show you with this in a moment. And Dandelion can be recurred with a Crane again and again. Same thing with Debris Dragon. It'll spawn tokens every single time, so this gives you so much more power. It gives you so many more options, and if nothing else, it's just a defense, so really cool card. Foolish Burial then can be played because both of these targets are amazing to hit with Foolish, and so now Mathematician is pretty much at 2 in this strategy, and we have Glow Up Bulb and Dandelion both supporting each other for synchro plays, and then working with all these other cards because they're Earth, being able to be abused. It also gives us access to a really cool monster. You guys may know this if you've played Plant Synchro, but I love this card. It's Melier of the Trees. Has 2 abilities. You need 2 level 3 Earths to summon, but I mean, that's as simple as Crane, a Dandelion, Trooper, or a Mathematician, right? Melier will let you detach a material to either Foolish Burial, or Mathematician, whatever you want to call it, a plant monster from your deck to your grave. One of these 2, so now that can come back for free, right? The other ability is you can just go and straight up revive a dead plant from your grave. So in either case, you're getting Dandelion or Glow Up Bulb or its tokens. This Melier allows so many power plays where you will consistently get Dandelion to the grave, probably with Glow Up Bulb because of some combination of these cards, or just random milling. And at that point, you can spawn 2 tokens. I actually use these sheep tokens as my fluff tokens. But so let's say you use Foolish Burial, you sent Dandelion to the grave. You get 2 tokens, right? You go and normal summon your Crane to bring back the Dandelion, and then you go and overlay these 2 for a Melier of the Trees. Now you can go and detach, probably not Dandelion, to send Glow Up Bulb to the grave. You can go and revive the Glow Up Bulb by milling, sync these, and that will let you go Formula Synchron, so now you draw a free card. And look here, you have these 2, so now you can sync these 2 for 3, and you can go Tatsunoko. And that might seem silly, but Tatsunoko is really potent in this deck because it's a level 3 tuner that lets you use any of your level 3s in your hand as a material. There are some ways we're going to get to in just a moment that will spawn even more level 3s for free, and this will unlock Trishula plays if you just have any other level 3 on the board. It just extends your play, so a very cheeky play you could do just with the Melier of the Trees that I really do like in this strategy. And you could see how, when you have Formula Synchron, Tatsunoko, and Glow Up Bulb, those are level 1, 2, and 3 tuners. This may be the only main deck tuner, but it comes back quite a lot between Grandsoil and Melier, and when you combine it with these and the extra, you will be able to go for a full suite of Synchro monsters. It's amazing how much depth one level 1 tuner can bring to the strategy. Now it's time to finish out the main deck with a bunch of tech that will be good to mill, as well as support all of our other plays so far, so we get the most out of them. First off, we're playing 3 Max C. This is just a personal pick of mine in anything running Grandsoil. Max C's ability to just send itself to the grave at any time means you will have 5 Earths out of nowhere. And the fact that it lets you draw into more cards is never a bad thing. Max C is already mainable in two copies in a lot of decks, so why not just go for that third, have even more consistency in triggering Grandsoil, or not triggering, but allowing you to summon Grandsoil. So I like it for that flexibility. That's just my personal pick, and through experience I found it really does work, so that's why Max C's at 3 here. We're playing 3 Construction Train Signal Red. This is your defense that you're playing off of Max C. For those of you who don't know what it does, this is just one of my favorite cards. If your opponent attacks anything directly or your monster, you can go and special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, the attack is diverted to this card. You force it into damage calculation, and then this can't even die that battle. So in the off chance your opponent's using a piercing monster, it could hurt a bit, and you only have 1300 defense, but that's still better than taking a direct hit, of course. And the fact that it doesn't die means a lot of times your opponent won't expect this thing. They run into it, and then now you have an additional monster. Remember I talked about how you could bring out Tatsunoko? Well, now you have 2 level 3s on the board, fuse with, or sync with another level 3 in your hand. Trishula comes out of nowhere. So this thing keeps you alive. It also lets you utilize things like Melee of the Trees more effectively, or because Melee needs to stay on the board in order to be able to use its effects, of course, but it only has 1700 attack. Just protect it with Train. There's just a lot of little things that you can do with Train, protecting your key cards, setting up further plays, and if it gets milled, it's an Earth. So overall, I've been loving this thing at 3 in this strategy. And then to supplement that, we're playing just 1 Swift Scarecrow. We have some recycling cards that we're going to get to in a bit, and that's why I'm only playing 1 of these things. At level 1, it's not quite as useful as a level 3 Construction Train, because you can't, crane Swift Scarecrow like you can the Train. But the fact that you can end an entire battle phase is a potent effect that I did want to have access to. So this is just your absolute defense so that you don't die. And if it gets milled, whatever, it's an Earth monster. So that's why that's in here. That's more of a tech, supplementary tech. 2 creature swap. This lets you go take all your Max Cs, your Swift Scarecrows, your crappy cards, your Dandelion tokens, and just swap them over to your opponent. I had been trying 3, but I feel like it's not something you always want in your hand. It's something that you would like to have access to a decent amount of the time. So 2 ended up being a good number out of testing. Feel free to experiment with it, but I feel like it's an extremely powerful out when a lot of people are playing things like Vanity's Fiend and those like. Just steal their one big monster and they're screwed, especially when you're giving them tokens or just hand traps that you can't use. It's just really good. We have, for recycling, 2 monster reincarnations, and in addition to that, 1 Jar of Avarice. So monster reincarnation lets you go discard any card from your hand, lets you fetch a monster in your grave. Mainly these things are in here so that you can go and retrieve Grandsoil when it dies, because I tried other ways to fetch Grandsoil directly, like Duality. It's just not synergizing enough with the strategy. So I felt the best way would just be mill like crazy, bring back the Grandsoil, and when Monster Reincarnation ends up in your hand, it works pretty nicely. You have the ability to manipulate the grave and Earths just a little bit, because you can choose whether you discard an Earth monster or not for its effect. And then you have some synergies, because you can dump Dandelion or Glow Up Bulb, you can go and set up something for your Crane or Debris Dragon, and you can even dump things like the Breakthrough skills that we'll get to in just a bit. So very all-around useful card. It's a high utility card in this strategy. You don't care about the minus all that much in a deck like this, because you're really gaining so much advantage through sending things to your graveyard. And then Jar of Avarice lets you target any 5 cards in your grave except Jar of Avarice, recycle them. So since you don't have to hit monsters, unlike the Forbidden Pot of Avarice, you can basically just fix your graveyard however you'd like. You have 5 for Grandsoil, boom, you go off. That's really in here for that reason. In the case that you go over, this is your most powerful tool at getting right back to that 5. And the fact that it can go and recycle your power spells and your extra deck monsters is pretty good as well. So Jar of Avarice is useful for all those recycling purposes. That's the point. It's actually wanted for its recycling. We have a Raigeki to clear the opponent's board. I mean, this is good in general, but when you're trying to form a Grandsoil field with like 2 to 3 monsters in a turn, Raigeki can help you OTK, so it's really powerful here. Soul Charge will be a graveyard fixer, temporarily getting rid of Earth monsters from your grave and allowing you to make stupid setups that you can't even make with just a Grandsoil revive. So Soul Charge is in here for its, well, really all of its attributes. And then we have, as I mentioned, 2 Breakthrough skill. This is something where you just mill it, you reveal it with Curry Bandit and dump it, or you go and you dump it with the what was it? We just mentioned it, the monster reincarnation. So many different ways to get this thing to the grave. I just feel like it's a better choice over effect failure in this strategy because you have much more of a chance to send it to the grave and still see it be live. You can shut down Vanity's Fiends, Majesty's Fiends, bunch of annoying monsters, especially with Monarchs being popular nowadays. I mean, I'd be playing it regardless of the, top tier metas because, my friend loves playing Monarchs, but it's just even more of a reason to play it right now, and it does synergize with the strategy. And finally, for the last 2 slots, I just don't like to get killed when I'm trying to kill with Grandsoil. So we're playing 2 Trap Stun to shut down things for big power plays. I didn't really like 3 because there are times when the Trap Stun, I'll draw it and then I won't ever even get to Grandsoil. The 2 Trap Stun are just a supplement to help make sure that when I do want to go off, the move sticks. If I don't draw it, oh well, I can make some roundabout play that doesn't require that I throw all my resources into the field all at once. Trap Stun just helps you as needed. You could take it out, you could play it in the side, but I just wanted some sort of a defense. And the reason Trap Stun over things like MST is because in my meta, MST is just not as useful when there are like artifacts rolling around everywhere. Like Trap Stun is just better to counter that Sanctum play. So that's really why it's in there. And that's the main deck. Let's go now to the extra real quick. We have 2 level 4s in Armory Arm and Haster. Armory Arm you guys are familiar with, just push an extra damage. Haster is really cool, so it needs generic requirements, 23 attack, which is very good for a level 4. Recall you can Mathematician Glow Up straight into either of these. And Haster says, if this is sent from the monster zone to the graveyard through any means, you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls and equip it to that card from your graveyard. That monster cannot attack, its effects are negated, and if this card leaves the field while equipped to that opponent's monster, you steal your opponent's monster that it was equipped to. So there's some really dumb things you can do with Scrap Dragon and the Phantom Knights of Breaksword. Just get rid of this guy. Steal your opponent's monster that was negated. If this thing happens to die, which you can crash into with a safe 23 attack or just have killed, I mean, it's a decent beater and it won't make you take tons of damage when it goes down. You get to punish your opponent for it, so very, very useful card. It is a little more situational than I would like, but it is well-rounded enough that your opponent probably won't want to touch it for no reason. So it's a very useful play. Again, that you can get straight off of that Mathematician. And of course we have, let's see, so we have level 2, 3, and 4 Synchros. For 5, we're playing 1 Chanbara. This is my pet card from all of my decks. If I can't play Naturia Beast, I'm playing this thing. He can attack twice each battle phase, and whenever he battles anything, either direction, monster or direct, he gains 200 attack. So he can do 4,600 direct damage on his own, doing 22 for his first attack, and then 24 for the second attack. So he just ends games out of nowhere. It's a high-impact monster. I just suggest you guys try it. I had been using Armades for the longest time, but Armades I used less and less because it just wasn't strong enough. This guy just ends games. It's as simple as that. We have 1 Nothung the Starlight. This is cool because you can go burn your opponent for 800, weaken something without targeting, so you can get over Leo and the Cosmos ships, and then if it dies, you Grandsoil it back, trigger its burn effect again, and then weaken again. So I just feel like this is a better pick than Goyo, especially when we're expecting to revive monster cards, and that's really the reason. I just like Blackwing Nothung the Starlight more than Goyo right now. For 7s, we have Black Rose Dragon and Clearwing Synchro Dragon, both level 7 dragons that we are able to bring out utilizing our Debris Dragon. I don't know if you can see either of those. Black Rose is there, Clearwing is there. Yeah, they're kind of hard to see, but Black Rose is useful for both of its effects. You can bomb the entire board, or you can go and banish one of your plants, Melier, Dandelion, or Glow Up Bulb. Probably not Dandy, but you can easily get rid of the other 2. And then you can just flip up your opponent's guy, hit them for 24 to the face, hit them with other stuff. You win the game off of that just out of nowhere. And Clearwing's a really good out to Monarchs. It's good, well, not new Monarchs, but it's good against some of the Monarchs. It's good against things like artifacts that I play against. It's good against just any high-level monster, anything that targets, so like the staple removal Xyz. Very powerful option. When you can go Debris into this, it is just a phenomenal pick. I really do think you need to have that along with the Black Rose. 1 Scrap Dragon at 8. It doesn't happen a ton, but you do get Scrap Dragon through like weird Tatsunoko Dandelion plays and stuff. The fact that you can go and abuse Dandelion tokens with this thing is amazing, and I mean, if it goes down, it's an Earth, and then you can bring it back with Grandsoil and do stuff all over again. Trishula, I already showed one way you can bring it out with that Tatsunoko, but your deck's based on 3s with Crane Crane. It happens more often than you think. You can Crane Crane a Tatsunoko back. and then just have a level 3 on the board, like Construction Train from the previous turn. This thing comes out more often than you would think, and it's very potent when it does, of course. Plus, you get Soul Charge. And then, should you have this thing, you can actually go and summon this anytime you have one additional level on the board, maybe a token, or you could just Glow Bulb the Trishula into Leo. Hey, you can go for Leo. You can Soul Charge this thing. This thing still wins games because, you know, I mean, it's a Cosmos ship pretty much. If it can't be targeted, it's a pain to get over. So I think it's really worth playing. Haven't been disappointed with it yet, so we're going to play that. And for our last two Xyz monsters, we're playing one defense and one offensive option. Mech-Quipped Engineer is a long-term staple for me. This thing lets you go and protect any one monster you control. Switch that monster to defense by detaching Mature from this. It's invincible the entire turn, other than bouncing effects and like random send to the grave effects. So very solid way to protect your melee, protect yourself just by protecting it, you know. And then, of course, we have the new Phantom Knights of Breaksword. This thing lets you Scrap Dragon. It's as simple as that. It does have another recursive ability for Phantom Knights. I'm not playing them. But even then, you can just detach Dandelion, like Crane, Dandelion, bring this out, detach the Dandelion, target some other card you have. Next turn, you have tokens that you can use with this thing. Like, it's just insane how much you can get off of this. I mean, if Scrap Dragon's worth playing when it's hard to access at 8, I mean, what better than a much more easily accessible version that you can utilize that Crane, Dandelion play with. Like, this is one of the reasons I wanted to build this deck, and it's working phenomenally. So here's the deck profile in alphabetical order, starting with the monster lineup. We have 2 Card Trooper, 3 Construction Train Signal Red, 3 Crane, 1 Dandelion, 1 Debris Dragon, 1 Glow Up Bulb, 3 Grandsoil the Elemental Lord, 3 Curry Bandit, 1 Mathematician, 3 Max C, 3 Raiden, Hand of the Lightsworn, and 1 Swift Scarecrow. For spells, we have 2 Charge of the Light Brigade, 2 Creature Swap, a Foolish Burial, 2 Monster Reincarnation, 1 Raigeki, 1 Rhoda, 1 Soul Charge. And then for the traps, we have 2 Breakthrough Skill, 1 Jar of Avarice, and 2 Trap Stun. And that brings us to a 40-card deck. And then for the extra deck, we have 1 Formula Synchron, 1 Tatsunoko, 1 Armory Arm, and an Old Entity Haster for 4s, 1 High Speed Royd Chanbara for 5, Blackwing Nothing the Starlight at 6, Black Rose Dragon, and Clearwing Synchro Dragon at 7, Scrap Dragon at 8, Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Sphere at 9, Leo at 10, and then we have some rank 3s. We have Dante, Mech-Quipped Engineer, Melier of the Trees, and the new Phantom Knights of Breaksword. So down in the comments, let me know what you think about this strategy. It's definitely something really different from what I've built before, because usually I don't like the random mill aspect. Like, even the Chaos OTK deck that I made that was, you know, focused on dumping things to the grave was very, very streamlined. This type of a deck, you know, it's so unconventional. Aiming for a set graveyard configuration isn't the easiest thing to do, and quite honestly, there are games where I will just completely forego the Grandsoil and just go with the backup strategies. But overall, I feel like this deck is quite a bit of fun to play, so if you feel you want to test it out on DevPro or something, you know, I invite you to do that. Definitely let me know how that goes. And if there's anything else that you might suggest, maybe to take the deck in a different direction or consider some other tech cards in this build, I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. If you enjoyed, please give it a thumbs up. It does help me a lot. And if you know someone, maybe a friend who would enjoy something like this, be sure to share it with them, because I'm sure that would help make their day. Once again, hope you guys enjoyed. This is JDGaming. Hope you guys like what you see here, and I'll see you guys next time.